Good morning, good day, wherever you are. Welcome back to Current Topics in Management. Now we are talking about the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrencies. And if you've paid close attention, you can click on this link, and this link, which is the regular class link, this is what we focus on, but I have two other guest speakers that may join us this week to talk about Bitcoin also. They've obviously developed very well, and they have specialties in Bitcoin and blockchain. And so this is one of the PPTs that these experts presented for us several years ago before the rest of the world really knew about Bitcoin. These guys obviously were aware of it, and they're stinking rich now. And so we have the chance to have question and answer or listen to these guys that are specialists in Bitcoin and blockchain. And so we're going to go through these details. Again, this is the main PPT we're going to be going through and the main context. Are there any questions from any of the students today? Going once. So I'd like to start and remind you again that this is the week 5 of our class. And this week, Emma and Lance and Eloise and Laura should be presenting their materials so everyone can review in advance. And I understand these students will be presenting in the class on Thursday. That makes sense? Help you are going to be able to present starting next week. So let's go on. And I want to also remind you that everything you're researching and developing, hopefully you can develop from the material I have and material that other students have developed. So this is an article that's developed by other students, and it's talking about the idea of centralization of a decentralized system. What they're talking about is this week's topic. Bitcoin, what is it? There's several definitions, but one reason behind it is Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. That's one of the biggest features of it. However, this student has gone through and identified, although it is decentralized, and so there's no one government controlling it, they have identified this, that almost all of the mining activities, which controls and creates the Bitcoin, is done through this pool, this pool, this pool, this pool, and this pool, and almost all of these are near Shanghai in China. So what they're saying is that almost all of the creation and control of Bitcoin is being done in China. So this paper here is so shocking and so good, so well researched, it could start a world war if this is promoted. And I encourage everyone to present your papers, not just to the class, but everybody when you're signing up. We agree, we should publish your papers. I will help you publish your papers. And so if this was published, it could start maybe a war, because United States wouldn't want Bitcoin completely controlled by China, and many other countries would be the same. So here is one research talking about those details. Next. So if we get into this idea, what we're going to discuss today is, what is Bitcoin? What is blockchain? How did it begin? How it works, and how is it going to change the world? And so before I talk very much about my ideas, although I have studied it and I have quite a bit of a research background, I am not a world famous expert in this. So I would like to show this other presentation, which is linked at the beginning. So if you click on this title, this blue, if you click on the title for here, you will open this. And this was created by Bitcoin experts. And so as we go through it, It's the same thing. It's what is blockchain? What is Bitcoin? They're explaining blockchain first because blockchain is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is blockchain. They were created together. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the outlook. So I'd like to just check. We've gone through about a few minutes of class so far. Can everybody hear me? Sa Jungwoo, can you hear me? Sa Jungwoo, I can't hear you. Maybe you're still not in class. Last class, I asked your name. You weren't here. I think for several classes you have missed. Laura, can you hear me today?
Yes, yes, yes.
And you understand all of the things we were talking about at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just as long as you can hear me, I'm going to keep going. That's all I wanted to do. So we are at a massive change. It's not just in the horizon. This PPT was created several years ago in 2017. And so we are going through a huge change now. What is that change called? Anybody know? I'm offering bonus points if you can actually name the title. The world is aware of it. There's a revolution going on. Going once, twice. Don't hear anybody. So we're at the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And so we are going through lots of changes. And there's the quantum computers, the quantum leap. So back in 1995, when I first came to Asia, many people were starting to talk about what is the internet. And many of us were unaware of what the internet was, but that was, some people say, the third industrial revolution. But that's 1995. Now it's 2021. We are well into the fourth industrial revolution, not just the third industrial revolution. And so there's new unimaginable technologies, and they're out there now. Like I say, this PPT was created in 2017 by experts that were involved in Bitcoin. And I wish I listened to myself better. I was teaching students about Bitcoin in 2012. I wish I got it invested in Bitcoin back then. I am invested now, but it's been growing like crazy and the changes are crazy. So this revolution, what is this revolution? Most people are too busy to understand it or to be aware of it. Most people say they don't have time. So what do you know about blockchain? Anybody know what is blockchain? Going once, twice. I can't hear anybody speaking. So blockchain.
With Laura, we know, but we explain in our presentation. So we can explain after.
Okay. The idea of what the blockchain is, what I'm talking about, and again, this presentation from many years ago, it's something you should get. You should understand it, if not use it, if not be aware that it's changing the world. And so why? The idea of it is the face of Bitcoin. So not just Satoshi Nakamoto, this is a mystery guy, invisible man, a pseudonym for the inventor of Bitcoin and blockchain back in 2009. He created a white paper that was talking about a cure for the world. And so why did he invent it? Some people say to help criminals, but I believe the best answer is to solve a problem with trust. This last week, you should be aware that there was like $10.5 billion invested in Bitcoin. Earlier this year, Tesla and Elon Musk invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. But rather than just show people are adopting it, what is important is that the world is in a huge, dangerous situation because some people are owning factories that just make cash, make money for countries. The American dollar factory has been going crazy. And so they're making so much money and giving so much money out to people. The people that just have a little bit are losing their value. And most of the money is going to governments or to big corporations. And so the rich are getting more or richer or more powerful, whereas the poor are getting poorer. And so there's no control over that. The government can create as much cash and turn on the cash factory as often as they want, as much as they want. And they've gone through making trillions and trillions of dollars this year. And so we have the destruction of the value of cash. And so the governments of almost every country, they have promised every time that there was a recession, they printed money, but then they said, oh, they're never going to do it again. But here we are again. They keep turning these factories on. And so Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, JP Morgan, Bank of England, the Federal Reserve System, all of these organizations, they promise they're not going to do these things, but then they keep doing it. So there is an issue of trust. And where the money goes, there's an issue of trust. There's a gap between the rich and the poor. 3 billion people, about half of the world's population, live on less than $2 a day. 85 people have more wealth than half of the world. So that's just 85 versus almost 8.5 billion. So there is a big issue. The IMF is issuing a report saying that income inequality is the biggest issue, the biggest problem in the world. So there's the solution. Satoshi Nakamoto created a solution, which was Bitcoin, which was intended to end this abuse of trust and money control just by a few people. And so what he was talking about is, what is Bitcoin? Maybe it's better to identify what is blockchain. And although there's a couple of experts that are going to talk about blockchain, a lot of people are aware of the word, but not actually what it is. So here's a cartoon showing that the boss is walking up to the IT guys or the tech guys or the research guys saying, I think we should build a blockchain. And so the experienced guys are saying, does he understand what he's talking about? Or is he just repeating something that he saw in some magazine? And so he says, what color do you want it? And he says, I think mauve or purple is the most RAM. So most people have no idea what it is. Blockchain has got nothing to do with color. It's other things. So the definition of blockchain, since we are in Korea, in Korean language, it's the same thing here in English. It's a public transaction ledger that makes transactions secure by sharing the entire transaction ledger without a central authority overseeing and managing it. And so as we go through, the idea of one person can send information into the internet and the other person can receive it. Usually you used to have an agent in the middle controlling it, like a bank. And now we have these miners that just check these details. They collect information, record information, verify, and approve the information. And so again, here, the sender, you transmit something, and there might be two different miners. They're checking the transaction. This guy sending it, did he have it to start with? And he's checking. And this guy receiving it, did he actually get it? Those details are the basic idea. And then we get into, once we understand that there's many people using this system, and each person has a small amount of information from this transmission, then not one person can cheat the system because it's spread out over everybody. And so that's what we're talking about here. The old way, you had to go through a bank to transfer some money or some valuables or some assets, which means the bankers, the owners, get a big percentage of that, and they can control how much you have to pay for agency fee, and government controls them. So not only the middlemen agents as banks, but the government middlemen agents, they can possibly distort the system and make the two people sending and receiving get cheated. That's what some people say. So that idea of trust. But if it's going out to the world or in many different nodes, decentralized, distributed amongst everybody involved, it is more of the trust system. So the miner's role is to collect, record, verify, and approve information. And so the idea of transaction information, A sends the Bitcoin, B receives it, but the amount of Bitcoin was sent, all of that is recorded, the time it's recorded, the date, the details are sent, all of that is recorded into the blockchain. It's like a puzzle, a math puzzle. It actually is easy to understand if you just think of it is money that is controlled by a genius math formula. So solving this giant Sudoku math puzzle, the winner that checks these transmissions, they get paid $50,000, $80,000 just to check it. They get given these Bitcoins by their proof of work is the consensus. So once several people check that there is consensus, that is the idea of the blockchain. And so the first blockchain started with Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2009, and now we're up to 2021. And so we keep making more and more and more, just like governments, but the difference is there's only 21 million possible Bitcoins that can be created. And so the number of these details is limited, unlike a national currency. And so in the past, the national banks or the reserve banks, we had issues with trust and we had issues with control because they can make as much as they want. This year, they created billions and billions, more than ever before in history. And so that trust is very low. And so the idea of now, when the consumers and the clients are spread out, so not one person controls it, there is more trust. So why is it revolutionary? It's a system that keeps people honest. All transactions are open, transparent, verifiable. It's a new paradigm that will challenge the foundation of systems. It could be changing the world. It's reducing the amount of fraud or lies because you are showing everything. So getting into the agenda, what was the growth of blockchain and the adoption of it? And this guy here is kind of important to know. He created this Ethereum, which is almost just as famous as Bitcoin. We're going to go through it. So this idea of blockchain started with Bitcoin, then blockchain 2.0 is once we started to develop other valuable cryptocurrencies. These are all cryptocurrencies. Now, blockchain 3.0 is when society is adopting it, government's adopting it, science, health. They're using blockchain as a platform to diverse industries. And in the future, there's this new paradigm. You know, the whole idea of agents or banks or governments, their value controlling money is being taken away. So the idea of in the past, you could have a car or a house worth $250,000, but used, you can sell it for half price or less. Nowadays, you don't have to worry about some middleman, a car salesman that you don't trust, because you can check who has the car, where is the car, and transfer money, which is going directly person to person. And that cuts out that idea of untrusted middlemen. And so the fourth industrial revolution, again, it is happening now. You should be aware of that. And it's connected with artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things. It's an enormous impact on society. The idea of many different aspects. So Industry 1.0 in 1784, we have examples here. And then the Industry 2.0 in 1870, and Industry 3.0 in 1969, and then Industry 4.0, which is happening now. These are times when the world is changing. And this top picture here is an image of a citizen of the world, which is actually just a robot. And so the idea that robots have a passport and they can travel the world by themselves, make decisions on their own, answer questions, ask questions, make jokes. We are now not just living amongst ourselves and people from other countries, but we're living amongst artificially intelligent robots nowadays. And so many years ago, McKinsey did a report and they said, how far away are we from this future change? And it says, based on the current rate of evolution, we believe blockchain solutions could reach their full potential in the next 5 years. This was said 5 years ago. So McKinsey is saying blockchain could be at its fullest potential today, now, 2021. And so in 2015, we were exploring details, starting investment. 2016, 17, we had early adoption. Now there's the growth of it. 2025 is the maturity. This is not just from McKinsey, but also from Accenture. And this also shows the pace of innovation. So the whole idea of how fast did it go for 10% of people to adopt this new technology, whether it's a telephone or TV or video games, MP3, electricity, cars, cell phones, whatever it is, it shows almost everything adopts quite quickly. And the farther you go into the present day, or the farther you go into the future, the faster new technologies are adopted. Back here, this idea of the telephone or these other things, it took a long time to get to the peak. But these ones are rising incredibly fast. And so, what is the current landscape of this? Some people say it's gambling. Some people say that it doesn't have value. However, there is a lot of evidence saying it does have incredible value right now, and you should be aware of details. You don't have to invest in it, but you need to know that it is such a revolutionary idea that it could change the world, and it is destabilizing banks and governments. So this idea of payments are growing like crazy with Bitcoin. And it's growing. Again, this is from 2016. There was 8,300 different places around the world where you could you could pay for things with Bitcoin. Anybody know about the news today with Visa? You want another couple of points? We're talking about payment and blockchain or Bitcoin. And so I'm asking, who is aware of news today? March 30th, 2021. Why is today important? Most payment in the world is done through what? Usually cash. Number two, it's usually done through the Visa credit cards or MasterCard credit cards. Well, today, Visa has announced that they accept users of Visa to pay and control their accounts through Bitcoin. So now Visa is a Bitcoin system. But Visa itself may go out of business once people realize the full potential of Bitcoin. If there are any questions to that, please feel free to yell out. So the number of retail storefronts accepting Bitcoin is growing like crazy. Let's take a look at some of these other details. The idea of the trend of these wallets. You can see here in 2011, there was a small number of wallets, people storing Bitcoin online. But in 2017, there was more than 17. How much is that value growing now? Same thing for the activity. Network activity is on the rise, talking about transactions per day or estimated value of Bitcoin. Anybody know of what is the value of Bitcoin today? Anybody? Even the other professors teaching it? Hua, can you also make sure if Gord Black joins our group, can you make sure to introduce them? Or if John Pang joins our group, can you make sure to introduce them? Both of them are experts in this. Both of them have become rich with this system, but John Pang has created his own type of transaction portal. Did you hear that, Hua? Okay, can I get somebody to agree that if you see Gord or John Pang joining our group, please make sure you introduce them, since I can't keep checking who's here today. The idea of media coverage, there's so much information out there. You should be aware of what's happening now. Like I say, somebody invested $10.5 billion today in Bitcoin. Elon Musk and Tesla invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin earlier. Tesla is accepting Bitcoin as payment to buy the Tesla cars and products already. And the Visa card is accepting Bitcoin for payment. This is an actual picture from several years ago. There are bars and cafes in Korea where you can just walk in and pay for things just with Bitcoin. Later, if you're interested, I can show you some of these guys that are guest speakers this week. They actually talked about they were using Bitcoin to buy things in 2014 or 2015. And they're saying now it's a joke. Look at my Facebook when I took a picture of buying a beer with Bitcoin many years ago. Now that beer is one of the most expensive beers in the world. If I kept that many Bitcoin, I'd be even wealthier. These are examples of exchanges where you can buy and sell or where you can trade Bitcoin. And so this from 2017, this is showing the #1 platform was BitThumb, then Bitfinex. And you can keep going through seeing many different platforms where you can buy, sell, or trade Bitcoin. After we stop recording, I encourage some of you to ask me questions about some of these, because I'm connected with some of the owners and founders of these platforms. It would blow your mind to hear how much they actually have and what are some of these details, and can't talk about that publicly. So this is an example of what a Bitcoin mine looks like. So many different computers checking online just to see the transaction, to verify the transaction. And as I showed you before, this idea of, where is it here? This student, they researched this Bitcoin mining, and they identified in 2020, most of the Bitcoin mining and most of the electricity used for the Bitcoin mining was taken in China. And so this also says that the #1 user, even back in 2017, China has the most mining operations there are, and that's where it controls the system. So large blockchain projects. Of course, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is one. There's many. LG is some, Bank of Korea, Shinhan Bank, Samsung Electronics. There's many different large blockchain projects. You should be aware of how that's happening and developing. The idea of the decentralization and the control and the trust going out is changing the world. So what exactly, again, is Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency outlook? This shows from the beginning in 2009 up until 2017, it grew quite a bit around 2014, and then it grew again around 2017, 2018. Anybody understand why? Even the other professors, like Eloise and your team? No? Generally, when
Professor,
the miners
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Eloise has come back. She got just a problem with his laptop.
Are you going to present something?
No. She just come back. His laptop is just turned off, and now she's turned on, and it's gonna be work again.
Okay, so I can't help other people that are disconnected. They can ask questions if they want. Everybody should be asking questions, but they shouldn't disrupt the class if somebody is not connected well. But okay, the question was, does anybody know why there's this big spike in Bitcoin here around 2014 or 2017, 18? Anybody aware of those details? The idea of Bitcoin is created by paying miners to verify the network. And so at the beginning, they had to pay these miners many Bitcoin to get them interested in trying to verify the network. And every 4 years, Bitcoin payments to the miners is halved, because as more people adopt it, it's more easily accepted, so you don't need to have specialist miners verifying it. And so each year, each 4 years, they're paid less. And as they're paid less, that's when the value of Bitcoin jumps. So it jumped a lot at this point when there was a halving event, and it jumped a lot at this point. And this year, actually, May of 2021, there was another halving event, and Bitcoin was around $6,000 then, but it jumped up to now. Recently, it went past $60,000 for one Bitcoin. So it's growing like crazy. Anytime anybody has any questions, please let me know. A lot of people are new to this. A lot of people are shocked and surprised for this. You can say, holy shit, and ask questions in the class. Not just the idea of people coming in and out of the class, but Vincent or Hua or Adrian, any of you that have questions, please feel free to ask. And I'd like...
Yeah, I got some question. Is it
Okay.
it's a good idea to invest on cryptocurrency now? Not like Bitcoin, but other currency maybe.
Are you asking me if you should invest?
Yeah, I want your point of view.
My point of view is most people in the world don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know what they're doing. And so they let some other salesman, maybe a liar, that says they're an expert. They trick these customers into thinking, okay, he's an expert, give me your money and I'll invest it for you. And so it is a fact that if you invest wisely, you will do much better than people that don't invest. That's a absolute truth. But most people that invest don't check details of what they invest in. And so they give their money to somebody else, like a stockbroker or a stock agent. So my answer to you is absolutely, you must invest, but there's millions of things to invest in. You should only invest in something once you know more about it than most other people around you. And you can control more details than other people around you. For example, real estate. Most people think real estate is controlled just by the banks. Well, that's not exactly true. Real estate is controlled only by two organizations, a buyer of real estate and a seller. Anybody else is not important, except in a crazy example like nuclear explosion with Chernobyl. That real estate value drops down, not to zero, but it drops down in price. Some stocks, some companies, if you invest in them, they can go to zero. You can lose everything. Bitcoin, it could go to zero, but I don't believe it ever will, because it is the creation of this new type of internet, new type of technology, new type of trust transaction idea. And so Bitcoin is blockchain. Blockchain is Bitcoin. Anytime people talk about one, they're connected to the other. I personally believe Bitcoin is going to continue growing like crazy. But just like this graph you're looking at, it went from a very low value, it jumped with one halving, and then 4 years later, it jumped again. Now we're again another 4 years after this, it jumped again, and it went up over 700% since this last halving already. I think that it will continue to grow, but I can't guarantee it will grow in the short time. Right now, it's about $56,000 for one Bitcoin. It might drop down to $10,000 before it goes up to $100,000 or $1 million. So I have invested myself, but you shouldn't listen to anybody else. You should check details yourself. So learn what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain, what is halving. Learn those details. Learn this idea of we had one Korean person in class, Sa Jung-woo, but I already asked, and that person maybe wasn't talking in class. Anybody know what this idea of the Bitcoin Pizza Day is? Can anybody else read this Korean writing? What it was saying is back in 2010, somebody bought pizza using Bitcoin when it was very, very new. And so since it was very new, they paid 10,000 Bitcoin to just get this pizza. And now we know that not 10,000, but one Bitcoin is equal to about $60,000. So now you have $60,000 times 10,000. That's the world's most expensive pizza. That type of thing is kind of interesting to think about the investments. The idea of there's not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum or the Ripple. There's many different cryptocurrencies. This says Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, Dash, Monero, Ethereum. There's several here. You can look at these online. I can show these in a little bit. This is showing the idea of some people say it's a bubble, and some world famous people like Ray Dalio or Jamie Dimon. These are famous financial experts. They say, or they said, that Bitcoin was a bubble and it's worthless and it's garbage, but it keeps growing up. So they said the current prices assume massive adoption, which is not going to happen. Well, now we have more than $1 trillion bought into Bitcoin already. It, I believe, is the 14th or 15th most valuable currency on the planet. Chinese currency, American dollar currency, those are the most valuable. But Bitcoin, I believe, has already passed the the German mark or the Netherlands currency and many currencies of the world. So it's growing and even the Russian currency. So Bitcoin is growing. It's more valuable than many national currencies already. So in general, it's saying it's all the world's money. There have been breakthroughs not only in cryptography, but in innovation and regulation. So the more these develop, the more world is going to be changing, the more world changes and is open to things, especially with coronavirus, the more people will be open to these new styles. So what is the problem? A lot of people say Bitcoin is a problem because it's related to criminals or money laundering, because they say you can transfer things online and do it secretly. Sometimes people say that you don't know who is buying things. And so they say that it's for money laundering, just for criminals. Well, if you check who is saying most of these things, a lot of the organizations that say Bitcoin is bad, those are the organizations that are already powerful. Those are the organizations that profit from the old-fashioned currency, the fiat currency, a national currency like JP Morgan or the banks and the central governments. And as things are growing, like you saw today, Visa credit card is now accepting Bitcoin as a payment option. So there's increasing number of regulations and legal trends. It's increasingly be adopted around the world. It's still just the beginning. We haven't even opened all of the Bitcoin available. Like I say, there's 21 million Bitcoin possible, and the Bitcoin are broken down into, just like a dollar has 100 pennies, Bitcoin has 100 million small parts or bits, and those are called Satoshis. So that idea, it hasn't even fully started yet. So it's big. And a big winner, we see here that Jamie Dimon, a very, very famous financial expert, he said January 2014 that Bitcoin is a terrible store of value. Then he said in 2015, Bitcoin will not survive. But now Bitcoin is much, much, much bigger than Jamie Dimon. It's over $1 trillion has been invested in it. And China has officially made a cryptocurrency as their national currency now. So it is growing like crazy. So I'm finished talking about this. We can go back and talk about the details that were shared in class, but I'd like to open the floor to just people to ask questions and discuss these details.
0.00 something cent to thousand of dollars,
Okay.
and maybe $100,000.
You can see my screen here, right? So this is today, from March 29 to March 30th. So in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has been around $57,000. And so that's just in one day. If we go back in the last 3 months, you can see it's been rising. In the last year, it's been rising like crazy. So this is showing since the beginning. Actually, 2009 is when Bitcoin started. And if you go to the bottom of this, it actually explains some of those details, especially here with the Bitcoin 101. You can see these details. But back in 2009, only one person knew about it at the beginning, or 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody knows who that person was. He had to convince some other stranger of his idea. And it was basically just a mathematical formula. And so most of the world didn't know about it. It had almost zero value. But several years went by, and it slowly started getting the geeks or the nerds or the techies to learn about it that were talking online, or the people that were controlling computers or controlling the internet or controlling the idea of currency. Only those cutting edge people that were researchers, they learned about details, and it slowly grew. And again, they paid people a lot of money to check if it was true or not at the beginning. And every 4 years, from 2009 until today, they paid those people checking half. And so now we see in 2014, it jumped up a lot from $0 to a few $100s. And then from 2000, here it says $600 in about 2017, up to about $16,000 in 2018, down to about $3,000, or again, this is showing $5,000. Around every 4 years, it jumps in value a lot. So from $600 to $16,000. And then again, it went down, it settled $3,000 up to more than $30,000. So it is growing. And if you understand details like that, and if you understand it, it increases in value when there's less of it, right? Supply equals demand. Supply and demand are connected. The more demand for something, the more the price goes up. The less supply there is of something, the more the price goes up. And so there is less supply paid to the miners. And because there's less supply, that alone increases the value. That's number one. Number two, completely separate, the more people demand it, the more it's going to go up in value. And as the world learns, it's going up in value. Like I said, Elon Musk and Tesla, they invested $1.5 billion in it. That alone is going to change the world. And the fact that Tesla now accepts Bitcoin to buy a Tesla, that is also going to get a lot of people adopting it. The fact that many organizations, even China, is adopting it. And Jamie Dimon, the guy that said it's zero, he is adopting it. A lot of these financial experts, even the American Federal Reserve, they are adopting it. And Visa is adopting it. So there's almost nobody else that's important that hasn't adopted it yet. And so it's happening so fast that the world isn't aware of those details. As the world slowly accepts that reality, it will continue to increase in value. So that is another factor. I can keep going on and on and on. I'm not telling you to invest. I'm telling you to learn details, and I'm just sharing a few details. Adrian, am I boring you? Is this too much information? Would you like me to give you a few more examples of why Bitcoin is growing in value? Do you want me to explain more, or is it getting too boring?
No, but I kind of have followed the evolution of Bitcoin because one of the guy in my family has invested a lot of years ago, so I'm kind of aware of what it is. Okay.
I have listed many that you probably already know, but
Do you think like the growth of internet, like because information now is spread so fast, thanks to internet, is kind of affect the growth of Bitcoin?
Yes, absolutely. In the past, 100, 200 years ago, most people didn't have education. The only education you had was what your mother or your father or somebody around you said. And you didn't even know if you could trust them or not. Just whatever they said, you accepted. And then we started to get schools and universities that were teaching people how to find reliable information. Many students today, they still don't value what is reliable information or not reliable information. That's why my class is centered, core concept is you must know reliable information. And what is that? That is the internationally peer-reviewed journal articles or Scopus articles. That's why you need to have 10 Scopus articles in your information. If you don't, there's a high chance your information's wrong or your information's not reliable and people will not trust you or respect you. You can't have specialization if you don't have good information. And so hundreds of years ago, they didn't have access. But today with the internet, everybody on the planet, even the poorest people on the planet that have no money, they can still borrow a cousin's or a brother's cell phone maybe once a month to check on the internet. So they can still check. Everybody can learn anything online and share information in real time. So they're learning that the big guy, the rich guy, the top government like Donald Trump, sometimes he's lying. And they can learn on their own that they're lying. And so the internet is helping people learn what is good and reliable. And so one thing that I haven't talked about, another reason for encouraging Bitcoin, is that the government says, trust me, trust the government, and trust our money, trust the Korean money, trust the European euro money, trust the American dollar, because it's very stable and it's never going to change. But you know, that is a lie. This in the last 12 months, does anybody have a guess? What about Gulcano? Can you guess how much American dollars has been created, not from a company making money? I'm talking how much is a factory that has paper going in one side and the dollar signs coming out on the other side of the factory. How much money has been created in factories in the last 12 months? Do you have any idea?
No.
Anybody? Sa Jong-woo, welcome. I can finally see you. Do you know how much American dollars has been created in factories in the last year? Anybody?
I thought it's like the money it should be like printed from the bank of that nation. Like every country has a bank of their country, and the money should be printed in there. It's not like that.
You're right. Well, no. Every nation has a Federal Reserve. They have one area that controls the money. You're correct.
Hello, Professor.
Go ahead, Malik, if you want to explain.
Yes, it depends on the gold. Like every country, they have their own gold, and countries just like that. India has their own bank. So the Indian Reserve Bank. So they can't produce money. They can't, because if they produce money, then the money, the currency will decrease. So they can't produce money. There is a limit. It. So that's all.
Okay, to help explain what Malik was saying is every country controls how much money they have, and they control the money. But each country has a factory. That central bank you're talking about, it's like a factory that makes money. They're not supposed to tell the world it's a factory and they make their own money, but that is the reality. Almost every country in the world has spent more money or loaned more money, and they owe other people more than they can pay back. And so when their due date to pay money back comes, rather than the country go bankrupt, they just turn on the factory and they make more cash. They make more dollar bills. When coronavirus came, many people were starving or having problems. So the American government basically just turned on the factory and printed $6 trillion, more than has almost ever been created in history, just in the last 12 months. And the new president, he just signed a new bill saying he's going to pay people $3 more trillion just to continue doing well. So I believe it's up to like $9 trillion have been going through this factory just for the American dollar. And many other countries the same. Does that answer your question, Hua?
Yes, but I think the national money should be more reliable than Bitcoin, because it's not controlled by outside force. For example,
wrong.
I think
you're absolutely wrong. Bitcoin is not controlled by outside factors. Each nation, each country's cash is controlled by generally a few people, a few very powerful people, and they can do anything they want with it. That's the problem. They print as much as they want, as often as they want. The world doesn't know about it unless you're experts, but that's the problem. I think I heard you say you should trust a country's cash because you think a country's cash can't be controlled by anybody. That's wrong. That is a lie. The president of the country or the Federal Reserve, that big bank in each country, those people decide how much to make. And it's always changing. They don't promote it. They don't talk about it on Facebook because it would create chaos. But if you check those details, does that answer your question, Hua?
Yeah, I think so. But how do you know that Bitcoin is not a bubble like .com in 2002?
Bitcoin can be a bubble. There's no way to anybody that says something is not a bubble or cannot be a bubble, they're probably lying, because anything can be a bubble. The true value of anything is the value of one person is going to sell and one person is going to buy and pay. Those two people are the only people that know the truth. They know what they're going to sell for and what they're going to pay for. Anybody else doesn't know the truth and they're just gossiping. And so some people can have a lot of cash and might get excited and pay more than normal to get something. And that is a bubble. And so the bubble could pop and it could come down. But the difference is some things like companies can go to zero. A company goes bankrupt and it disappears. But this is an invented new technology. This new technology can't disappear. So it can go down. That is possible. But it is a technology created by mathematics. And the more people understand the mathematics, the more regular people adopt it. So the technology is, does that make sense? And the difference is a national country. I need a couple other people to help me here. So I can definitely do it, but I don't want to make people bored. So Zarnigar, sorry, not Zarnigar, Emma and Lance and Eloise and Laura, you're up. Can you guys help answer some of these questions and share some of these details? You can continue to present if you want now or present next class, but we can continue talking about these things right now. So Emma, are you here today? Yes? Maybe she's walked away. What about Lance? Are you here and active today? You attending our group? I don't see Lance in our group today. What about Eloise? I was speaking to you, Eloise and Laura. Can you guys try to help? No?
You can hear me?
You need to start talking. Yes?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me? Yes, okay. Sorry, I have a problem with my laptop. It shouldn't, so I need to use the Vincent laptop. So,
Eloise Lance, right? Okay.
No, Héloïse Messager.
I don't see.
Vincent Cochin.
Vincent, sorry, is on the Vincent laptop.
So Vincent is interested in sharing the details. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't need to present now. You can just maybe answer this question. We have a question about what is the value of Bitcoin compared to the value of cash?
I don't really have the answer about like the value of the Bitcoin, but I can just explain what is the main difference between cash and Bitcoin.
Okay.
It's, for example, like if you have like cryptocurrency, just like Bitcoin, it's not the same than something like, for example, pound sterling, who is the official currency of the UK, but because like the cryptocurrency is not backed up by a state or a central bank, and it's not recognized by governments. So, for example, if you are going somewhere like buying like a bottle of water, like they always have to accept cash, but they can say like Bitcoins, no, I don't want it. And if there's a problem with Bitcoin, there will be no insurance behind to give you back the money, and that can be with bank.
Okay, I hope that explains some things to you guys. How about rather than just get you into your full presentation, how about I give you a couple other screens and you guys can take a look and maybe explain these. So Laura, thank you for talking about this. You can see my screen here. This shows the idea of today's cryptocurrency prices. So Bitcoin today is about $57,000. But what we see here also is the market size, the value. It is, well, it's actually explaining here, the total market value of a cryptocurrency's circulating supply. It's the free floating stock market of Bitcoin. And that says there's 1.01 trillion dollars in Bitcoin, or $200 million in Ethereum, or $41 million in Binance Coin. So this is showing it's growing, and you can change the values. The other thing is the question about we trust a country. And so what this shows is the top national currency by market value, how much cash there is China. China actually has this number, I don't know how to say this, is this 223 trillion Chinese yuan. But the supply, it's controlled, it's unlimited. They can make as much as they want. The next biggest currency in the world is US dollar. So there's 19 trillion US dollars in the world. But again, the supply is unlimited. Whatever the Federal Reserve and the government of the United States wants, they can make more of it. And then, so number 3 is the euro, then Japan, then Great Britain pound, then Korean won, Indian rupee, Canadian. But if we look down here, number 14, the world's most valuable payment is Bitcoin. And again, that is more than $1 trillion. And the other thing that is interesting is these are unlimited. They can make as much as they want. With Bitcoin, there is a mathematical formula. It can only make 21 million Bitcoin. After that, you can't make any more. Laura or Eloise, did you guys want to say anything else, or? I'm getting kind of excited. Hua, does that now help answer the question? The idea of a national currency is not fixed. Absolutely not. Before there was the American dollar, in the 1700s, I believe, something that was the exact same thing as the American dollar. Do we have somebody here from Belgium or the Netherlands that can talk about tulips? Who is aware of tulips, the value of tulips? Come on, I want to give some money or payment away. I want to give bonus points away. Anybody? One of the very first investments was the flower tulip. People actually used to buy the tulip and trade it with people for a value. And it actually became something like $6,000 for one tulip. It would be more than 1 year's salary of experts were the value of one tulip. And it was created by you. It was created as a class research project. Laura, your class research project, are you going to do the same thing? Create the whole new world? What about Gulcano? Julie, I hope you guys can do a class project just like this. The tulip was the very first big investment, and it was created as a class project. And it actually crashed. Some people realize that they don't care about tulips and went down. Gold is the same thing. Gold took on after that. And the American dollar, people are saying the American dollar is valuable only because it has a lot of marketing behind it. If we realize just the value is because of somebody's idea, like a tulip was valuable because somebody thought it was valuable. Gold is valuable for a different reason. Gold and diamonds, those are valuable because they're limited and they can be used for real purposes. The American dollar cannot be used for real purposes. It's just like a Visa credit card, which is identical to Bitcoin. I'm getting too excited. I should let you guys do more talking and me do more shutting up. Vincent or Eloise, I'm sorry, you were starting to talk about your presentation. Would you like to continue?
Mr.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are not the time for presentation because we have a course after, and we are not the time. So
We have 13 more minutes to talk.
Yes.
Anybody that's able to present, I can give bonus points.
Our presentation
Go,
is
go ahead, Laura.
We can present. It will be just 20 minutes, and
20
after
minutes.
we will like miss the beginning of the other class because the other class is face to face in Kim Jung, so we have to run.
Yep, that's fine. If you want, you can just present for 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you want. Or you don't even need to use your PPT. You can just talk and share your ideas and understanding. It's your choice. You will learn more by sharing more with each other. That whole idea is the value behind cryptocurrency. So Laura, whenever you want to present, go ahead. You should learn what is the wisdom of crowds. The greatest experts in the world is not as valuable as many regular people working together. And so regardless of the experience I have, or regardless of the training I have, I could say it's the best in the world, but it's just one person, one mind. A group of other people.
Bye, Professor.